Hello, my name is Paul, and I used to be a fan of Porsche. When the all-new electric Taycan came out, it was my dream car, and I couldn't wait to get my hands on it. Around March this year, I finally made up my mind about getting a Porsche Taycan. And guess what? That was the worst decision of my life. My salesman, David, was the most incompetent customer service rep I've ever met. He didn't have the right model for me at the dealership. He made me come over a million times. And worst of all, he messed up my order. Overall, my experience with Porsche was terrible.
So it seems like David is a terrible salesman, right? Well, he is just the tip of the iceberg. Paul's experience is more related to Porsche's operations in general. From his experience, we have realized that there are major disconnects within the customer journey. As Eileen Chow, the head of customer relations, has identified, this was an issue of both service failure and service recovery. Indeed, Porsche has failed some of its customers. And so it's time to introduce a new customer success strategy, one that's as robust as a Porsche Cayenne, as fast as a Porsche 911, and as modern as a Porsche Taycan. Good afternoon, judges. My name is Chloe, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Gary, Hannah, and Thomas. Today, we are excited to present to you a solution that will not only resolve Paul's issue, but ensure that no more individuals have to go through the same thing that he did.
Now, Porsche's core problem is to live up to the customer-centric promise. Today, we will introduce to you our solution, Porsche Portal, an all-in-one platform solution that will accomplish two main things. One, revamp the customer experience with digital transformation by connecting all stakeholders through one tool. And two, allow for service recovery by implementing first call resolution in the management of customer issues. Our solution will see a 49% increase in new purchases, 16% increase in user retention, and 21% time savings for staff. But before diving into our solution, let's take a closer look at Porsche's performance. Porsche AG delivered a record high of over 300,000 vehicles to its customers worldwide in 2021. China continues to be Porsche's single largest market, with over 95,000 vehicles delivered, a leadership position the country has held since 2015. In recent years, Porsche released Strategy 2025 with a heavy focus on automotive electrification and digitization. Taycan, an all-electric vehicle, or EV for short, was the flagship of Porsche's Mission E initiative. And as you can see on the left, China ranks number 4 in terms of Taycan deliveries, which is over 1,400 orders in 2020 alone. However, while demand for Porsche's EVs are skyrocketing, as you can see on the right, the company still values quote-unquote service and communications with our customers around the world. Therefore, Porsche must consider the holistic customer journey. Satisfaction with the car itself may be high, but what about the surrounding buying experience? To better understand what factors into the buying experience, we must analyze the 3 most impacted stakeholders. First, starting on the left, we have customers like Paul, who have high loyalty for the Porsche brand. After all, over a third of Porsche buyers are repeat customers. Next in the middle, we have Porsche dealerships. As we saw earlier, David was one of the 138 official Porsche centers in Greater China. Within these dealerships, salespeople like David make a commission-based salary and have allocation limits on the Porsches they can sell, as there is a finite supply. And lastly, on the right, it is important to keep in mind that all Porsche models are manufactured in Germany. So Porsche Hong Kong dealerships are managing supplier relationships and communication at a distance. Overall, we see that ultimately the dealer is the one that fosters the communication between the customer and the supplier. However, they have no control over the actual car production. And thus, this relationship management comes down to transparency and proactivity to make sure that the customer is aware of their car's progress.
In order to better understand the flow of information from the supplier to the customer, let's take a look at what happened when Paul decided to buy the Taycan. The second he steps into the dealership, Paul expects 3 things: a professional and helpful dealer who has his best interest at heart, a smooth purchasing process that is easy to navigate, and most importantly, Paul expects a top-tier product that he ordered. The 5 stages of buying the car are met with numerous pain points. The most important one is stage 4, arrival, when Paul is surprised with a car that has missing features. Although the most glaring pain point is towards the end of the journey, the factors that caused it actually can be traced back to stages 1, 2, and 3. Paul would not have gotten the wrong product if his changes had been processed in step 2, or if he had simply had access to the right product in step 1. So what can we learn from this? Customer issues stem from a lack of connection between stakeholders that Hannah mentioned earlier, the manufacturer beholds vital information that customers need, and the sheer volume overload is too much for the dealer to communicate proactively to the customer. And this is what results in suboptimal scenarios, like Paul asking Dave 3 times in a month about his order just to receive a production schedule screenshot through WhatsApp. That's quite ridiculous. Instead, we need to proactively communicate information to customers, and the few issues that slip through the cracks have to be addressed right when they initially occur. This is the definition of a first call resolution.
So we were originally asked the following problem statement, as you can see. But now that Thomas has identified the lack of first call resolution as the root problem in Porsche's customer journey, we can now ask instead, how can Porsche Hong Kong create a customer-centric buying experience by implementing first call resolution? I'll now pass it on to Chloe to answer this question.
Introducing the Porsche Portal, a solution that embeds communication, efficiency, and transparency throughout the entire customer journey. First, we will revamp the process to set the stage for first call resolution. And then secondly, we will see how first call resolution looks in action. Let's dive into the first stage, revamp. As we identified earlier, almost the entire customer-facing journey is done through the one dealer, David in the case of Paul's journey. While we recognize that having this one point of contact can be an element of a personal premium customer experience, it prevented first call resolution from occurring. So the Porsche Portal will be a medium to house many of these activities. Simultaneously, functions that require more personalization and human elements will continue to occur face-to-face, such as the selling process. Essentially, the Porsche Portal is an end-to-end digitalization of the company's customer relationship management that will track every customer's journey. In fact, trends in consumer behavior prove that this digitalization is the right step for Porsche. In Hong Kong and China, less than half of customers care about talking to a real person, but 68% of them do care that the agent is knowledgeable and can provide a seamless buying experience that's exactly what they want. So let's take a look at how Porsche Portal will enable this to occur. To begin, one of the core components will be an order tracking feature so that customers can track their new car without having to text the dealer and wait up to 10 days for their response. They'll have the ability to see what stage of the production their car is at and be notified of any updates and changes, such as a new part being added or an alteration after a conversation with the dealer. They'll also be able to see estimated shipping and arrival dates through the Porsche Portal in comparison to the 2-month-long range that's currently available to them. But you might be wondering, how can this be feasible?
Well, Chloe, I'm glad you asked. To learn how to set up a tracking system, let's draw inspiration from the top-ranking delivery platform in customer service, Amazon. All Amazon packages are tagged with a unique identifier, which is scanned through the delivery process so that customers can see exactly where their product is. We plan to excel in customer service with a similar strategy, and Porsche's vertical integration makes it feasible. Equipped with a GPS locator, an intrusion sensor, and a tilt sensor, a new IoT system will track cars through the production and delivery in real time. Despite the complexity of this infrastructure, implementing IoT throughout the manufacturing process is the only way to enable transparency to the customer, dealer, and manufacturer. Changes to specifications can also pass through the portal. If a customer wants to alter their original order, they can request changes directly on the portal, which is then relayed to the dealer and then to the manufacturer. Instead of finding out that the change didn't go through upon delivery, like Paul did, they will be proactively informed if their desired change is possible and what fees may be associated. They'll also be given a freeze date, which has optimized final dates for modifications. Now, let's go back to Paul. One of his main concerns was going back and forth to the dealership to sign forms. Paperwork will be made accessible through the Porsche Portal using encrypted e-signing. Unifying these functionalities on a singular platform is proven to foster long-term customer satisfaction. On the back end, dealers also benefit from the IoT system. Through the Porsche Portal, they save hours tracking their leads and customers instead of managing them individually. Dealers will also gain additional insights in the supply chain to assist them in selling and conflict resolution. Thus, the Porsche Portal equips the company fully to meet customer expectations. We've now tackled Eileen Chow's first concern, service failure, by revamping the way that service is done at Porsche. I'll now pass it back to you, Gary, to dive into her second concern.
Thank you, Thomas. As Chloe mentioned earlier, Eileen Chow, the head of human relations at Porsche Hong Kong, believes that Paul's customer journey is not only about service failure, but also about service recovery. In solution 1, we have built a new framework to reduce the risk of customer service failure. It also sets the stage for how we plan to address customer issues when they arise. Let's go back to the 5 stages of purchasing. Porsche currently has a system where between stage 3 and 4, they have to complete a customer service evaluation card. This is not a very reflective survey method because it is performed in the middle of the customer journey. Thus, we introduced a systematic change on the Porsche portal. Instead of only doing it once, Porsche will provide an option for customers to provide feedback at each and every stage. Here is how it will look in action. The user will begin by checking a box to confirm that they want to participate and provide feedback. Next, they will be asked to rate the service out of 5 stars. In this case, Paul Chen gave step 1 a 3.5-star rating. Lastly, there will be a space available to provide a written feedback that either complements the service or brings up an issue. For example, Paul could express his disappointment about not being able to test drive the Taycan. The new feature has 2 benefits. First, customers will feel valued and supported as they go through the journey. And second, they will be able to communicate the problem immediately.
Now, let's turn to the dealers, who are responsible for dealing with the complaints. As Paul's dealer, David has access to his profile and can see every piece of feedback. In addition, he is also able to track the development of all of his customers. To increase efficiency, the Porsche portal will prioritize negative or unsatisfactory reviews. For example, as soon as Paul leaves his 3.5-star review and complains about an issue, David is alerted immediately. As you can see, a red message pops up to flag the most serious problems that arise from customers. And from there, David can then issue an immediate and accurate response to Paul. But the step-by-step feedback form is a powerful tool that can do even more than alert dealers of a problem. Under the new system, the customer service evaluation card will become the average of all 5 stages of the journey, which is a much more comprehensive description of a customer's overall experience. More importantly, dealers like Paul will have a cumulative star rating score under their profile. This information is publicly available to both customers and senior management. Customers can view dealer scores and choose a good fit for them, while senior management can factor scores into performance reviews or future promotions. Ultimately, this will incentivize dealers to provide the best possible service.
Now that we have provided a more efficient system for dealer ratings and incentives, let's take a look at the Porsche internal hierarchy to assess the structure of handling customer complaints. At the bottom, as you can see in yellow, is our new order tracking feature, where standard questions regarding assembly and delivery time are accessible. Next, we have dealers like David in red, who can answer more complex and specific questions. At this level, dealer offers proactive advice. For example, David can explain the feature differences between the Taycan and the Taycan 4S and recommend the rear axle steering and adaptive air suspension features, rather than Paul having to do that research on his own. On the next level in purple, we see senior management. They typically don't interact directly with the customer, but they will step in for serious compensation issues, like when Porsche gives Paul an incorrect order. Senior management can also aid customer service as they have a hand in dealership logistics overall. For example, in Paul's case, there was a Porsche dealership in Shenzhen City, which is only an hour away from Hong Kong. So even though the Hong Kong dealership didn't have a Taycan in stock, Paul could have been directed elsewhere and been able to test drive his desired model potentially. Lastly, we have top management in blue, and they will only step in for critical situations. And all in all, this escalation management system will filter and prioritize customer complaints and requests, allowing for greater efficiency in timing and communication. In the new Porsche portal, issues will be escalated accordingly. There will be a clear communication system, and if there's a mishap, senior management will hear about it and step in if need be. More importantly, each level takes on additional responsibilities to minimize the risk of customer dissatisfaction. With this, we will achieve first call resolution. And instead of waiting until a problem is irreversible, we nip it in the bud. Returning to the customer journey, David, who's on the left, will have access to a more efficient system and be held accountable for his performance, motivating him to provide the best customer service. And as you can see on the right, Paul will be satisfied through the entire journey, avoiding the catastrophic issue like he did at stage 4 before. He now feels valued as a customer. And more importantly, Paul's 3 expectations will be satisfied. His dealer, David, will be extremely professional and supportive. The purchasing process is seamless because he can see the tracker and leave feedback. He is also confident that he will receive his desired product.
And so to recap, our digital transformation plan will achieve first call resolution to increase customer satisfaction for every customer that we serve. It addresses the two issues that Eileen originally brought on. By revamping the system, we essentially prevent service failure, and through Recover, we truly achieve service recovery.
The Porsche portal will go live in 8 to 10 months. To begin, in order to lay down a firm foundation for the portal, we need to establish an IoT infrastructure that will enable Porsche to track its products throughout the supply chain. Considering we don't have the in-house capabilities, we recommend outsourcing it to Mobile Dev, a German IoT expert. The company was selected because of their fast turnaround for development, which is essential given that Porsche must be ready at the top of the rapidly growing EV industry. Furthermore, the software development of the portal itself will be outsourced to OpenExcel, an international company with synergy with Mobile Dev due to their German location. The portal will be first deployed in China and Hong Kong in 2023. And at every evaluation point, which is seen in the color pink, we will follow one of the contingency plans seen on the right according to the adoption rates. These contingency plans will optimize the way that the Porsche portal comes into place in the long run. We have also considered 3 risk and mitigations. One potential risk is related to users who do not use the Porsche portal. We can mitigate this risk by adopting a more robust customer service solution. For example, we will implement a company-wide call center. This feature is already embedded into the Porsche portal itself, so it fits seamlessly into the long-term execution of the Porsche portal plan to be more customer-centric. Now, Thomas, what financial impacts does our solution drive?
In a nutshell, the portal generates 1.1 billion HKD of MPV. We took a bottom-up approach to our cost model, which breaks down into 3 main categories: portal development, IoT tech to support it, and employee training to integrate it. Both the portal's development and IoT costs have initial installation costs, followed by maintenance, and are based on actual OpenExcel and MobiDev pricing, which we got from their websites. To capture the full cost of portal development, we also accounted for data storage costs from AWS. Employee training costs in the first year will have paid 8-hour shifts for all relevant employees to learn how to use IoT appliances. Driven by improvements in the customer journey, revenues in this model are based on the following basis. Looking at assumptions on the right, the Porsche portal enables employees to save almost 2 hours a day on mundane tasks. The time is then used to foster deeper connections through FaceTime with customers, which is shown to increase retention by around 5%. The retention then in turn increases the average purchases per year of our customers, as seen below the graph on the left. Besides increasing the retention rate, the shipping trackers have historically decreased the frequency of unpredictability customer complaints by 87%. The subsequent boost in customer satisfaction increases the organic growth rate by 3%. Together, these 2 forces drive incremental revenue of 1.3 billion over a 4-year horizon. Indeed, the positive results on customer satisfaction surveys are reflected on the income statement.
To conclude, we asked the question, how can Porsche Hong Kong create a customer-centric buying experience by implementing first call resolution? And our solution is Porsche Portal. Porsche's mission is to provide an impeccable service to our demanding clientele of premium cars. And thus, our solution aims to put customers in the driver's seat so that Porsche can stay at the forefront of customer satisfaction. Thank you for listening, and we'll now open the floor to questions.
So thank you for your presentation. It is now time for the Q&A session. Please keep the question concise and leave your thoughts and comments for the feedback session. The 15 minutes countdown starts now. Let's hear the first question.
Thank you, Team Toronto. I have my first question is, you mentioned about having the feedback at each and every step. Do you think customers would actually do that? Because that seems to be quite a lot of work.
Definitely. This is a great question, and it is something that we have put a lot of thought into. As a result, we have actually decided that the final score will be an average of all of these steps. So for example, even if you only comment for 2 to 3 steps, it will still be a combined average in the end. More importantly, we also have a step-by-step process. So as you can see on the first rectangle, it says, would you like to give us your feedback? And if you had a pretty good customer experience and you wouldn't like to provide feedback, you can simply not check it.
Thank you. And a follow-on question is, I think after the feedback, there are mechanisms to alert the dealer. I think in that case, alert David. Yeah, this one. I guess my question is, for this particular example, the client, Paul, it's actually very dissatisfied with the service. If the escalation is only going to David, do you see any issue with this?
Yes, for sure. So this is actually a step-by-step system, and it doesn't end with David providing the feedback. So for example, after Paul has implemented, if we go back to the earlier slide, after Paul has given the star rating and given the feedback, he will be able to see David's response, which will be immediate and accurate. And after that, Paul can respond again by saying, for example, okay, I understand your feedback and I think it's very useful. Or he can send another feedback and say something along the lines of, David, I understand that you're trying your best, but I don't think you've answered my question fully. And in that case, there's the mechanism of which is on the next slide with the pyramid, escalation management. In that case, David will be able to refer to senior management to answer questions. So for example, as Hannah mentioned as an example, if the Ford dealership at Hong Kong doesn't have the Taycan model, and if Paul really wants to drive it, then senior management can contact the other branches and see if there are available models, for example, at the Shenzhen division.
How does this differ from the current example where David can also alert senior management, just not in a sort of IT format? But the question here is, I don't think David's escalated in the example. So that's how the problem arises. So I guess my question is, if the alert is only going to David, then this doesn't solve the issue, whether it's in this escalation management format or in the example.
Yeah, so I definitely understand your concern there, so I can try and address that. And so the way that this improves the process is that it interconnects everything through this Porsche portal system. And so when the request is sent to David, actually all of that feedback is linked back to David. So David has a responsibility to resolve the issue. And so he'll be more motivated to escalate it to senior management.
Thank you.
Just curious, was there any research done in terms of how other luxury cars, be it Ferrari or even Tesla as a competitor, in terms of what they're doing with their feedback and similar solutions?
Yeah, absolutely. I can take this one. So,
Sure.
So we looked under the Volkswagen Group more specifically, and we saw that the processes right now in the industry fall into two categories. There's in-person and there's online kind of feedback surveys. And the main trend when you talk about companies like Tesla is digitization. So they appeal to a younger audience, and that younger audience, for example, the average age for a Porsche buyer for the Taycan model in China was 30. This younger audience wants sort of online models. And so we saw that the industry trend was moving in this online direction. And that's what kind of inspired us to make a digital platform that doesn't require people to come into a physical location.
Gotcha. So that relates back to one of your statistics, that 43% don't care if it's a real person or not. Was that a specific region or age group, or do we have any background to this? Is it from Capgemini?
Yeah,
so that's
okay. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's specific to customers for the auto industry in China.
Oh, okay, that's specific. What about the 35% retention rate for Porsche? Was that specific for the Asia market, or is it the same across globally?
That is a global statistic.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead, Hannah.
Sorry, yeah. So that was a statistic provided by Porsche's official website, and we thought that it was given above industry standard compared to the luxury model, given the fact that a huge percentage of customers are already very satisfied and very loyal to the brand.
Okay. On data piece, you were mentioning that data will be held with AWS. Was there a slide for this? Can you remind me what data we're putting in?
Absolutely. Yep. So under each customer profile, there's going to be tracking data. Okay. Can we go to the appendix slide for financials? And I believe the data cost per customer was quite low. It was somewhere around 50 HKD. Or can you go back to the previous slide? I think is there on the bottom. Data storage per customer, it's 40 actually.
Any thoughts on where the storage is going to be, given this is the China market? Where will you put the data?
The data will be outsourced. Our entire IT system, the idea is that we don't have the in-house capabilities. We want to expand it very quickly. So we will be outsourcing that. Okay.
So it'll be kept within a supplier, and would there be any consideration in terms of where the data is going to be kept, given the various privacy issues?
Absolutely. And that was a big consideration, especially with our IoT integration system, because there's going to be a lot of sensitive data about our supply chains and things like that could be dangerous to customers, or to competitors. So we really consider that. And so the main strategy with that,
you're on mute.
Sorry, I clicked that by accident. So PSA certified hardware. So the hardware that the third-party installers will be bringing into our factories for IoT tracking in the first place will be super secure. And then it goes into a portal that is essentially built by a company that has done this before for Fortune 500 companies. So that's why we trust in their expertise to encrypt their data through the entire sort of online chain.
Okay. Can you walk me through the slide, this appendix? It's useful in terms of, this is in US or is it in Hong Kong dollars? Because given your other ones, 4.2.
Everything in this, everything in this appendix is in Hong Kong dollars.
Okay. All right. So we're saying this is going to cost 4.2 million per year, or initial cost. Yeah. Okay.
So the 4.2 million. So just to clarify, that's $4.2 million for the initial app building costs, but that's not for the entire solution. That's just the app.
Oh, so these are the assumptions. They're not running down. Gotcha. And the revenue per customer is specific for China, or is this global? And it's different per car, I would presume, or it's just your assumption?
So we did sort of standardize it across all cars. For the sake of simplicity. But in terms of your geographical question, we started in China. Can we go back to our implementation slide? Thanks, Chloe. Yeah, so first we're starting out, we're deploying in China. So we're testing throughout the first year, developing through the first 6 months, then we're deploying in China and Hong Kong. So all the revenues you see realized up till Q4 2023 are all coming from that region. And then you see the pink point. So that's a reflection point. So depending on the adoption rate that we're experiencing in China, we'll be deciding if it's low to sort of scale back and try a more old school sort of phone call system. And if it's high, we'll be eagerly expanding into new regions with older customer bases. And that's one of the reasons we started in China, is because they're so young. So we know that they're going to adopt this technology, and it's riskier to penetrate markets with, on average, older Porsche users, such as Germany.
Thank you.
I have a question on outsourcing. Would the customer actually know that the data is being used by a company outside of Porsche?
That's
and
a
what
good
if?
question.
Yeah. Please continue.
So I believe if customers would look into the privacy statements that they sign off of when sharing their information with us, that would be made available to them, but it wouldn't be sort of screamed in evidence that we are outsourcing our sort of data needs.
So it wouldn't be?
So it's made available through the privacy statements. Just like whenever you create any kind of online account, you have sort of privacy statements. But yes, that's the extent to which we're sharing that information with the customer. So it's not sort of our best foot forward when we're advertising the solution. on a customer-facing perspective.
What about what if the customer doesn't want to use it? Because given potentially some of the buyers might be a different age generation, they're not the youngest, not so sure. But what if they don't know how to use mobile apps, or they might not read English very well? What's the proposed solution for these customers?
For sure. Chloe, if you can navigate to our risk and mitigation slides, this was definitely one of the first risks that we ranked in terms of likeliness and severity. So as you can see under number 3, we consider this exact risk of potentially there's a proportion of users that don't want to adopt our portal as a whole. And ultimately, with our Porsche portal solution, it allows us to provide a foundation to potentially expand the customer service journey to allow for other mediums that customers might be more receptive to. So for instance, we do have checkpoints with our implementation that Thomas mentioned where we can review adoption and looking at what customers are receptive to. But an example of something that we could build upon the Porsche portal if we find that users aren't receptive is something along the lines of, for instance, a company-wide call center or some other form of automation to make it more approachable, or perhaps looking at other ways to branch out the extension of the customer journey, essentially. So ultimately, the portal, if we do find that it's not being adopted, the portal itself still allows us to give us a window into other further customer satisfaction opportunities as well.
I actually have no further questions, Deborah.
I have no further questions either. Thank you, team. Oh, do you have any questions for us?
We'll keep this for
brief. Okay, sorry, no questions.
Yeah. So if there is no question, we can finish the Q&A session earlier. And team, we will place you in the meeting room and bring you back in for the feedback section in a few minutes. So everyone else, please kindly leave the room, and we'll see you later for the result announcement. So we'll bring you back in 8 minutes time. Thank you.